You've been at the forefront of being a social activist and a prolific scholar with many publications and books to your credit. So I wanted to understand how you got interested in working in this field and what your motivation has been to make this your passion for so many years.
Well, it's very personal experience that I had to encounter many difficulties in my own personal life, not in the context of violence, but certainly as a girl, child of the family where there was elder brother
Yeah.
who was getting opportunities and I had to fight for those opportunities. For example, after high school, going to university, it's boys and girls studying together. You can't go there because you have to go to a girls' college. And for me, the fight was that I will go. So my family is Gandhian. They fought for freedom of this nation. They have my grandfather was in jail for many years. My grandmother used to make a roti, and even the dove used to be taken away by the police. So that kind of a background family also didn't want to take the risk of sending a girl to university. So I started with their method. 2 days, no food, nothing. I was almost dying after 2 days because I didn't know what it is. Good to declare a hunger strike, but if you really do it. So I finally got into university. Then my brother came to Jawahar Lal Nehru University, my elder brother, who's now become very famous, very well-known personality. But at that time, he was like my everybody agreed that he must go and study. It's a new university, giving good opportunities, lot of good academics here. So he should go.
Yeah.
And then I can't go as a girl to stay in a hostel alone by myself. So again, fight, crying, all kinds of things happen. Anyway, so finally I reach here and finish my M.Phil and Ph.D from JNU. So I think that's one thing that, you have to, wherever you may belong as a girl, certainly there is a discrimination. There is a socialization process where we are ingrained with that discrimination. And also, of course, my age girls were all married. I belong to a family which is very Banaras, conservative, traditional. So everybody was married. And then I started getting the stories of, my friends facing all kinds of violence. And then when I am in JNU, I came across this dowry death case, where one of the then leader, Pramila Dandavate ji was the finance minister then, and all that, he invited me to come with some girl students because I knew from the family this. Anyway, so we go with a group of JNU students, and I see that this girl is on the cot. Then, of course, tied with the rope and burnt. Family took the stand that no, she committed suicide. And Pramilaji and all were invited by the parents, and they were all like, fighting that this is clear murder.
Yeah.
So that's where my consciousness kind of changed, because otherwise, coming from a very highly political family, I was grooming to become a politician. I was in student politics in BHU, then again in JNU, but then I changed my track from there. And then I wrote my first book called Brides Are Not for Burning, and I studies cases directly, each death case by dowry. And then I came to the conclusion that in-laws are responsible, parents are equally responsible.
Yeah.
Because they knowing well that the girl will be killed, they did not allow them to come back. And also, of course, on the higher echelons of our society, it's much more prevalent.
Yeah.
And they are the ones who are setting a benchmark for how much dowry should be given. So I think that's where the whole thing shifted, and I joined the women's organization. I built many organizations over the years. I've worked for years and years. So that's the history.
Wow. So, as an activist and as someone who's been involved in policy making over the last several years, what are the changes that you've heard of or seen in the incidence of gender-based violence? Do you think we've made progress as such, or have things gotten worse?
Okay, when you look at this, the only source of information we have is the official data of NCRB. So you will see consistent increase in that number. And in my own personal experience of working for years, I think it's important to know that one case gets reported when 10 cases happens.
Yeah.
Because rural areas, hardly any cases are reported, hardly. Then there is a rural area within our own urban areas. Very few gets reported. So it's only lower middle class, up to middle class now, a lot of upper middle class is very complacent about it. They exploit women, they harass women, they inflict violence on women, but they don't want to mention it. And their women also do not come forward. Most of the information that gets collected comes from the lower middle class in the urban areas, educated families.
Yeah.
So we can't say the data is right. Data is 10 times more in terms of violence. So essentially to say that it has increased in spite of the fact that we got many laws made, being on the street, fighting. We got domestic violence act, sexual harassment at workplace. We got the whole law made after Nirbhaya, where we were looking at maximum punishment. But in spite of all that, there is absolute apathy as far as our courts are concerned. So you will have only 23% people getting convicted on rape cases. I personally have fought 54 down death cases, but never any judgment came. So, if you have a judgment after generation, which is 20 years, what is the point having? So, that's the justice system in India. So, what is failing? Not the legal framework, but justice delivery system. As a result, there is impunity about violence. As the result, culprits are emboldened.
Yeah.
Men and boys changing their mindset is going to take, because change is incremental when it comes to society. What could have really helped in controlling all this? Very efficient mechanism of law enforcement. But we don't sadly have that. And that is why we are seeing much, much more cases. Little bit of, I'm a very big optimist and I feel that things have changed, things will change because we did manage to get so many laws. We did manage to get so many girls reporting. There was a 7-year child who was raped by uncle. आज की तारीख में भाई भी आता है, फादर भी आता है, बदला लेना है, इनको ठीक करना है. तो एक transformation हुआ है. Women have developed support systems around them, which they never had. So they're able to speak out. So that's the change that I see. But cases are increasing. They've become more gruesome. Brutality has increased. You see what happened in Manipur. I could not have imagined, thought that such a thing I will have to see in my lifetime. And no political accountability, no legal accountability and responsibility, no administrative response, and society also by and large has been silent. So that's where it is.
So beyond just reporting, it has increased in
Absolutely.
incidents as well. As I had mentioned in my research, it said that 36% of women who were employed were subjected to domestic violence, and 25% who were unemployed were subjected to domestic violence. So to me, that was very surprising. But as a promoter of women's rights and gender parity, is this something that comes as a surprise to you, or do you see that happening?
Well, ability to earn does not make you economically empowered. You see, when you are able to earn more money, it suits the family, it suits the man of the family, men of the family. There's no 1:1 relationship between improved ability to earn. I'm again not saying economic empowerment. Ability to earn and your rise in social status. There is no relationship. I did a study of Haryana, gender work and power relations. If you go through that kind of a situation where Haryana women are their ability to earn has increased, and they are in agriculture, labor, construction, so they are bringing money home. But then that does stop them getting beaten up every night by a drunken husband. That does not stop their status to, get thrown out with children anytime. That does not, it has not given them right to get ownership of the land or the dwelling that belongs to the family. So it's important to understand that women's ability to income does not change the power relations. Because what is patriarchy? It's about men controlling the systems, fine, and whether it is religious institution, political parties, they're all tools of patriarchy because they're all controlled by men. So you see that if you have made the income, does not mean that it has changed your relation in the household with the man you are living with. And if it has not changed, that means his behavior and your behavior remains the same, and you get certainly the same kind of violence that you are.
And is there any sort of reaction from the husbands, or any backlash from the fact that they are going out and earning and have the ability to earn, even if they don't have control over that money?
Well, during COVID, it's very interesting that we were running the programs online, everything, even our COVID relief. What was the situation? The woman was working, so she is confined, and there's this violence at home for whatever reason. the relationship is not good, and so she gets confined to that violent home.
Yeah.
Besides the work, she is also looking after the children 24/7. She's also catering to the in-laws or whatever elderly people in the family, and the husband. Fine. So her situation becomes much more aggravated in terms of violence. Her money stops, then the family situation will become very bad. So she must continue earning. So till that time, husband is standing by her and saying, okay, but if the phone call comes after 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the night by the boss, what's going on between you and your boss? Why is this? I've seen so many offices, nobody goes like this. Nobody works at these hours and things like that. So it added to the tension. So what happened? More violence. And then she has nowhere to go because total support system collapsed during those periods. Even we could not. Now I will rush a counselor to her house, but we couldn't even do that. So she is much more isolated and violence happened more. And then after COVID, slowly they go back. They are going back to work, but then that support system is not there at home because people have become used to 2 साल चाय मांग रहे हैं तो वो भी ला रही हैं और अपना काम भी कर रही हैं.
So, amongst the younger generation of women, especially urban girls and women who are well educated, do you feel that there's enough family support or individual confidence for women to speak up when they are subjected to domestic violence?
Well, I think yes. Why I think yes? Because I'm seeing a whole generation of no nonsense girls. They are like, fine, this is my boundary. I will not tolerate something. And as I told you, their family support system has increased. They are understanding daughters better. They are willing to support and stand by their daughters. They are not allowing daughters to suffer.
Yeah.
And then so that's something which is helping. That's where the transition is happening from what despair that I'm talking to you about, and then hope. That's the hope that girls are getting educated, they know their rights, but then at the same time, you see what happened to Me Too movement. What happened? It's not about domestic violence, but it's about violence.
Yeah.
And everything collapsed.
Yeah.
Because you see, the whole thing is that we all have to work towards this whole mindset about blaming the girl, blaming the victim. Nobody raises the finger to the perpetrators of the crime. Something we ran a program for training police. One of the officers who was given the certificate, the police commissioner says, "तूने क्या सीखा?" He says, "मैं अब घर जाके चाय उसके मुंह पे नहीं फेंकूंगा." This is the process, the culture slowly, and this is how now even the wife will not tolerate. She will not allow you to throw the tea on her, a hot tea. Fine. So the generational change we are already witnessing, and I think things are becoming better.
Yeah.
Nobody has given right to a man to hit, whether it is religion has not given that right, constitution has not given that right, the job they do, whatever money they bring has not given them that right. But how do they do it? Why do they do it? It's because of the socialization and cultural acceptability for it.
Often for women in India, the education or the lack of education comes at the expense of work, in many lower income households especially. So what is your sense of how this barrier of choosing one over the other is being broken in India or can be broken further?
See, as long as poverty will remain, inequality will remain, as long as survival depends on your meager income, children will be pushed to work.
Yeah.
Whether you have a child labor law, whether you have, anything that you ban. So I'm sure that a lot of that's what has happened also post-COVID. A lot of girls dropped out of school from the poor families. They are working. They've never gone back to the school. A lot of policies and government is not recognizing this.
Yeah.
So on the one side that the girls are in the labor market, and on the other side there's more child marriage that is happening. And child marriage is another form of violence.
Yeah.
Because when a little girl comes to the house, the vulnerability is very high. Probability of getting violence is very high. So that's what is happening at the moment. And that is why if we really go into the real-time data, which unfortunately we don't collect because we don't have gender-based disaggregated data system in our country. Except for census, some issues have been taken up. So I think future we should be able to do more advocacy and lobby for getting better gender statistics in India. So we will know the real picture. But at the moment, I think that's compulsion. Women have to Children have to go and work, girl children have to do more work, and that's what is happening. Yeah.